So when we think about the professional development plan process, there are multiple stakeholders. Of course, there are the employees, and they have to be part of this process of developing their own development plan. I think traditionally, employees largely direct their own employee development. It's one of them finding opportunities, being given the time or the resources. But in performance management process, hopefully what we're doing is making employees link that training and development work more specifically to their own performance. And in that sense, it is the role of managers to help guide the process of development, to connect it to performance management, which is connected to a person's job and the strategy of the organization and the strategic implications that it has for the department that the person works in. By doing this, it makes managers a much more active part of this process where they can support success and even reinforce the training and development to see that it actually transfers back to behavior on the job. When we were looking at performance appraisal forms, we saw that oftentimes a personal development plan is part of that form. And in here, we can specify specific actions that employees need to take to improve their performance. We can also highlight employees' strengths. More and more, we see professional development being strength focused. That suggests that people have more room and are more motivated to develop in those areas where they have existing strengths. And so we should not just look at deficiencies. We should look to people's strengths. There may be areas where there are deficiencies, where a person needs to obtain a certain level to be effective. And so both areas, both strengths and opportunities of improvement, can be areas where we focus development plans. So the personal development plan answers questions about how over the course of the next year can I continue to learn and grow? How can I do better in the future? How can I avoid performance problems that I have experienced in the past? Now, these are some of the major components of personal development plans: the plan objectives, the content of the plan, and specific developmental activities that will be undertaken to achieve those objectives. The overall objective of a professional development plan is to encourage continuous learning, to focus on areas for performance improvement, and to give opportunities for personal growth to make work more meaningful. When we look at specific objectives for development plans, sometimes they're looking at specific areas where performance can be improved in the current job. But also, we shouldn't ignore areas where performance needs to be sustained. Performance can vary over time, and even in those areas where people are meeting or exceeding expectations, we want them to sustain that level of performance, and professional development might be needed to maintain that level of motivation. We also should think about how to prepare employees for advancement and how to enrich the employees' work experience to make them engaged in the work that they're doing. Now, the content of a development plan should, of course, have objectives or goals. And so that should focus on skills or knowledge. In addition, we need to have a timeline. When will this development be undertaken? What is the deadline for achieving some level of skill or knowledge that we're trying to develop? Also, we need to think about the how of professional development. What resources are needed? Is there time off that is needed? Does there need to be a course that is delivered? Are there specific strategies that can be undertaken? Might this involve coaching? Might this involve online learning? Might this involve some kind of stretch assignment for the person? So there are many different strategies, and with each of those, there may be particular resources that we might need to consider to provide the employee. Of course, any goal or objective needs to be measurable, and so we need to identify what is the standard of performance that we're trying to achieve and how we will measure that. What is the yardstick for professional development? We also need to consider the needs of the organization as well as the needs of the employee. So, what is the level of performance that is necessary for the organizational to be effective? And where is that employee in terms of that level? And what is the gap between those two? And how do we close that gap? Now, the content of a development plan should be collaborative. It should be chosen by the employee and the direct supervisor. Both have interests in the employee's performance and development. Both have to use resources in order to achieve that. And so it should be a collaborative effort. We should take into account the employee's preferences for learning. We should consider what is the specific objective in question and what are the organization's resources. We need to really consider what on-the-job resources are available. On-the-job learning is very useful because it takes place within the context that performance is going to be executed. We need to consider what opportunities there are for on-the-job training, for mentoring, for job rotation, or for temporary assignments. Now, in addition to on-the-job learning, there are things like courses or self-guided reading. We might consider getting a degree, and so there might be some kind of tuition assistance. There might be a particular conference that addresses the skill that needs to be developed, or there might be some professional or trade organization where membership could contribute to the employee's development. Now, the supervisor needs to explain what kind of development is necessary. There needs to be a connection to performance, and performance needs to be connected to strategy. And so the supervisor is key in making those connections. The supervisor also manages the resources that are available and may be more aware of the range of resources. And so they may need to refer employees to appropriate developmental activities. And they need to help to form the development objectives or goals so that they are realistic yet challenging goals. Supervisors also need to be involved in monitoring the progress of the employee's development. So it's not just a once a year conversation. And they may need to provide motivational reinforcement, the mastery asymptote, that as we get better and better, the feedback that we get, the performance increases are more and more slight. And here a supervisor can go a long way towards encouraging a person to continue to try and improve and to focus on a goal, even when it's hard to tell whether they're continuing to make progress.